Hello and welcome to episode 23 of Off the Rails with me, Claire. Today I have a guest, Beth, who is going to take us through everything marketing, which I think will be a lot to unpack. So we'll start somewhere, see where we get. This is a hot topic that I get asked so much about, and also things that I would love to know more about as a complete novice, as an entry into the marketing world. So Beth, tell us a little bit about you and your company to start off with. Set the scene of what everything marketing means to you.
Oh gosh, what a question to start with. Thank you so much, Claire. I'm really glad to be here. And yes, hi everyone. My name is Beth. I am the founder and CEO of Orchid Marketing, which is a marketing agency based in London. And we help busy female-led service-based businesses realize that marketing their business and also marketing themselves doesn't have to feel overwhelming. So we do this through personal branding workshops and masterclasses, and also very targeted marketing strategies that really give you the tools, the understanding, the clarity, the confidence to grow. So we have a specific process that we take you through that focuses on really understanding who your audience is, understanding what they care about. We will then work with you to create the systems, the marketing systems, to be consistent in delivering those messages that will actually get them to want to work with you. And then we also help you identify really the value of what you do and how that connects with your clients, both in a personal way through your personal branding and also through what you actually do with your clients.
Cool. Right. A couple of questions off the back of that.
Yeah.
So first of all, what I'd love to know is, why have you decided to focus on women? Is that something you know, is a personal touch for yourself, or why have you gone down that route of just women focus for your business?
There's a couple of reasons. The first one is that was kind of naturally who I ended up working with or resonating with. When I first launched my business, I wasn't really focusing on any specific business in general, to be honest. It was just anyone who wanted to work with me. And then as time went on, I realized and refined my marketing systems and the way that I approach marketing to best serve service-based businesses. And then naturally, I started to realize the patterns of, oh, actually, women tend to be the business owners that come forward and want to work with me. But also, what a benefit of that is I am also a female-led service-based business. And so I'm constantly testing and working on my own marketing for my own business. And so because I'm my own guinea pig in a way, whatever works for me, I'm then also able to translate into what I can do for my clients. So it kind of works hand in hand in that way of, because I get to work with people that look like me, do the same, things as me, then I get to help them a lot more effectively as well.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I think there's a lot more female entrepreneurs, female founders. And I think statistically, I read recently that females are more likely to launch their own business than men are. So there's a lot more of it out there that are doing exactly this. What you and I are both trying to make a good go of is launching our own businesses. One thing that I find interesting in what you've just briefly touched on, so I'd like to kind of dig a little bit deeper there, is I work with clients. So you and I have met through an actual common love of Steph, who is, if anybody knows, founder of Fuck Being Humble, which is a great platform. She really embodies exactly that. Don't be humble about what you do, promote yourself, all of these things.
Yeah.
So you and I met through that, and you kindly reached out, and hence why we're here today, to share our own experiences and share those wider with everybody that's listening too. So to that point of like personal branding, that's what drew me to that particular platform. And you've mentioned it just now. I get a lot of questions, and actually a question that I have for you, I guess I want to pose as well, is when it comes to personal branding, what are the kind of tips, what would you advise for anybody starting out? Because I had this, I've gotten over the fear of it a little bit, but I know a lot of people starting out, it's the cringe of how do you promote yourself? How do you get to feel comfortable in that world? Because marketing is such a special realm of skill set that, yes, you could be a coach in career, for example, as I am, or somebody that wants to be a mortgage advisor. But what is the common thread that underpins being able to, personally market yourself?
Yeah, what a great question. To be honest, I think feeling the cringeness and feeling the sort of hesitation to promoting yourself in a way, or at least building your personal brand, typically comes from when you're trying to show up as someone that you don't actually feel is you.
Right.
And when you don't feel like you can, quote unquote, be yourself. Because what I find when I speak to a lot of business owners trying to build their personal brand is they feel like there's one way of doing things, or they're like the one way of doing things of like being an expert on LinkedIn, or it's like oversharing, telling everyone what you had for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and everything that goes on in your life. And either way, if that is what you want to do what works for you. But I know personally, I wouldn't want to tell everyone what I'm doing every second of the day. And likewise, I wouldn't want to sound like everyone else on LinkedIn, because then what's the point of building a personal brand if it's not recognizable? So I guess the main tips and the things that I teach in my personal branding workshops is really that it's about connection, and it's not about seeing a version of you that feels untouchable or like too cool for you, or too polished. It's really just about what lessons you've learned, what makes up your story, what personality traits do you have that make you unique and memorable, and how then we work together then to be able to translate that into content that then also leads back to your business. Because of course, part of building the personal brand is that it helps you become more successful. And yeah, really just sharing the things that you wish that you knew, and what you are hearing a lot when you're speaking to your clients, when you're in conversations with people. What do people come to you for? And that doesn't just necessarily mean with your business, but also with, are you the tough love friend, or are you the sort of agony aunt friend? Are you the motherly, maternal kind of friend? Those are the things that make up who you are, and then that can also translate then into who people associate you with and how people think of you.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly great advice, and something that I can speak about firsthand that I've struggled with. I only launched my business a year ago, and things that I've kind of found, I would say, maybe it's an internal battle that I've had, is the personal side. Like you said, how much is too much, how much is too little, and giving that away, because you want somebody that can relate to you, because that is what attracts. It's the law of attraction, isn't it? Somebody you aspire to be, and also then there's an amount that you find attractive because it reminds you of yourself, whether that's narcissistic or not. It's true. It's like, that reminds me of me. I get nervous at that point, or I feel confident in that realm. So basically, I guess my further question to that is, when it does come to personal, and then extending that story then to your brand, is there kind of any hints or tips how to do that? Because I have personally found, I feel like when I'm promoting my business, I can kind of go down the personal route. Oh, I remember when I've done that, or when I've done that. And then it feels like I'm just reaming off my experience, as opposed to touching on my experience, but elevating into what I can do. And I know I'm not the only one that's fallen into that trap, but what are the best lessons to keep, I guess, like checking in on yourself, that you're not just speaking about what's happened, but more about, okay, that's relative to touch on, but this is how it can, support you. This is how I can tell you about what I'm going to do going forward. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think in those moments, it's useful to think about the end goal. Think about, what do you want people to get out of this piece of content, or out of this story, or out of whatever it is that you're telling people. So if it is that you want them to see that you are a very quick thinker, you're quick to think on your feet, and that saved a client from a massive fuck up, tell the story of setting the scene of what that was like, sort of raising the stakes in the way, building up that anticipation for, oh God, what's about to happen, and then talk about what you did that was beneficial to your client, and then link it back to that end goal of what you want people to walk away with. So the framework that I use for telling stories, I'm going to share with you all, because I think it's so important, and storytelling is really the thing that will bind, I think, everything together in terms of what you're trying to do with building your personal brand, and also linking it back to your business. So let me just get that up.
Yeah, I think we're just finding that. I think that is the thing. It's the key around storytelling, to make something completely. Yeah, it's building a picture in somebody's mind and making it relative. And okay, I can see how that'll benefit me. It is that. I think that's something that is, in theory, sounds like, yeah, I can tell an experience that I had, but actually there's a true skill to it, to being able to do it and land it right, that you engage with that person that's listening, for them to then come back to you and be like, okay, what you're selling to me is valuable, therefore I'm going to reach out to you. And I think that's the bit that often gets kind of the hanger at the end, which doesn't complete the loop, if that's a good way of being trying to have an analogy around it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it helps. It sort of makes people, it gives people a reason to want to listen to you. It gives people a reason for wanting to watch to the end or listen to the end. And yeah, exactly. It's something that will stand the test of time as well, because what's something that people were doing in 2025 BC and are now doing in 2025 today, is telling stories and connecting with people in that way, and being able to tell your story, not just necessarily your personal story, but anytime you're talking about anything to do with your business, that can be turned into a story. And so what I like to share with people is, first of all, start with the hook or the focus of your story, or the focus that will, the thing that will bring focus to you into telling your story. And I think as well, when it comes to hooks, they're largely overcomplicated, but it's essentially something that you say and or do, usually at the beginning of the video, that will grab people's attention. And how you can do that is either through just simply saying, are you someone in your 30s looking for X, Y, and Z? Or it can be something like, I went to the shops today and you'll never guess who I saw.
Yeah.
Like, those are, either way, you're going to be intrigued to stick
know
around
more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what I like to do with the hook, or at least with the second part of the story, is to raise the stakes, as I said. So explain what's at stake, what is to be gained or what is to be lost in your story. So if we're talking about going back to when you saved a client from something, you could say I saved my client from avoiding returning their tax late and saved them £10,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
And this is what I did. This is how I was able to find something that they missed, that they weren't able to see. And then sharing the lessons and the sort of key takeaways from that story also positions you as someone that knows what you're talking about. And then finally, with that sort of linking back to your business, it could be to sign up for a lead magnet or something that you can sort of give in exchange for their details, usually for free, or to follow you or to buy something from you. You know, once you've kind of locked them into your story, and once they've seen, okay, this is someone that can potentially help me with what I need, it's a lot easier then to also ask for that action as well.
Yeah, I think that is a part where a lot of people, again, I've either through personal experience, through people I've worked with in different groups, have encountered that over and over again, of where you've just mentioned how to really, if you've engaged with somebody, you've got their attention, then how do I turn that into a client? How do I turn that into something that's going to, you know, be of monetary value? Because we're all here to make money. We all have to pay our bills, but that is often easier said than done. And in the world of marketing right now, there's more and more people giving free workshops, free e-lessons. So we're up against maybe, you know, the bigger players that can offer these free things. And you're the smaller person that really needs to kind of get that first step. How do you, is there a discipline? Is there a rule? Is it just something you need to get better at? You know, where you don't give too much away and you try and remain the, I guess what I'm trying to say is, even in my voice, I'm like, how do I say this? It's probably that fine line between giving enough away and hooking so that you're showing what you're capable of, but then being able to retract and get that person to come to you so that you can give them something of value, you know, and they understand the value of what you're giving, so therefore they're going to pay for it. What does that look like? How do you do that? You know, it's so tricky.
So I'll answer that question both with your content and also with something like a lead magnet. So just to explain what a lead magnet is, it's again something that it's a value exchange basically. So it's something that you can give to someone, usually in exchange for contact information. Right. So for example, when you sign up to a free workshop, you have to give your name and your email. And so the person hosting that workshop can then use your details to give you more information about what they do, send a follow-up, for example. It's not always about trying to pitch to you and sell to you, but typically it's some sort of value exchange, and that's the way that I like to think about it. And so when it comes to your content, I think using the constraints of short form video actually allows you and helps you to only give the very helpful parts of your story and not say too much, because you don't have time to say too much. But also it is something that comes with practice, and I think the best ways to make sure that you're not saying too much is to focus on the lessons and less about maybe giving away all of your secrets of your process. So what are the lessons to take away from that? Maybe the lessons in the saving £10,000 of taxes, you simply need accountability.
Right.
You might need someone who can clear up some questions that you have. Maybe you need someone that is going through, you know, in your story, someone that might have the same business as the story you're telling, can then also see themselves in that and say, okay, yeah, you're right, I do need accountability, I do have questions, I am maybe concerned about this, let me see how they might be able to help. And so without having to go too much into the details of what your actual process is, and that's how you can make them hooked in and like reel them in, but at the same time not give too much away. So having the lessons, I think, helps with that. And then also focusing on the results as well. So what are the results that you help them with? For example, you know, something like, as a social media manager, you were able to increase their impressions by 150%. That doesn't tell anyone what your process is, but that shows that you're very capable, and that will reel someone in. That will reel someone in who wants to reach more accounts on social media or wants to get more followers, for example. So focusing on the lessons and the results are a really good way of reeling people in, but not giving away too much. And then when it comes to lead magnets, a lead magnet can be defined as a complete solution to a narrow problem. And so it works best when you have a natural next step to the process. So for example, you might put on a workshop and say, this is step 1 of this 5-part program that I have, or 5-part series that I have, where the end result is this. What you want, i.e. for your business, is this. And so we've looked at how we can do step 1, and these are the rest of the steps to achieve that. You can go and do that yourself, and you can try and you can figure it out yourself, or we could work together, and then I can help you put the action plan in place to actually achieve the rest of the process.
Yeah, that it's incredibly valuable information, because I think it's so easy. I myself have made the mistake and kicked myself over many emails that I've sent, you know, and there is a lot of people out there that are hoping for those mistakes to be made, where they do get a lot of information, they don't have to pay for it. I have many a time been in that position where brands have come to me and said, look, I really want to rebrand for this up and coming season. What would you suggest? And then they'll come back and dig a little bit more, and before you know it, you've kind of given them this great holistic overview that they can go and implement, yet you've got nothing from it apart from the time you spent, the energy you've put. And it's just, when you first start out, it's very easy to do that because you're wanting to showcase what you're capable of. But with those hints that you've given, those kind of key tangible almost rules, like a rule book to stick to, give them X amount, show them, give them the hook and give them the end result, but the bit in the middle is whereas it's the toughest part to navigate through, so that's where they need you. That is then what you need to make very clear is, this is where you need me to support you. This is where I can make you accountable, and I can give you a roadmap or a timeline or a guide through it, but you do need me for this. And that's often, you know, and I can say that firsthand, I have done it, and I've done it more than once. And I know as soon as I've sent the email, I'm like,
I over-delivered.
Yeah,
exactly.
But it's something you do figure out when you go through business, and marketing isn't your forte. It's such a complex area. Like I said right at the top, it's like marketing. That's why you have marketing departments in businesses. That's why you have yourself as an expert in this field, that people can come and lean on your skills and your expertise, because it is such a niche area. And once you have it right, it can be the real turning point for your business. So yeah, super important for those, I'd say, key things. One thing I think is super interesting is the speed of how marketing seems to be changing. For somebody like me that is not an expert in this field, but I came from the corporate world. We always had a big marketing department. Now being out on my own, and many other people that are, you know, experiencing something similar, there's so many things, so many to-dos, it feels overwhelming. You know, should we be on certain social media platforms? There's TikTok, there's Twitter, there's, well, which is not Twitter anymore, is it? It's X. There's LinkedIn, there's Facebook, there's there's just so many that it feels overwhelming. How would you best, again, with a client, how would you best kind of advise, look, stay here, is it to do with the business that you're promoting? Is it to do with the customer that you're going after? Yeah, could you talk me through that a little bit more? Because again, lots of people that I work with, me as well, I just find it overwhelming. And then I feel like, oh, I should be on TikTok as well. But then my brain is like, I can't do all these things. It's just me. So yeah, I'd love to know a little bit more about where and what we should be doing in that world.
Yeah, another great question, and completely agree. There's too many platforms for one person to be all on at the same time. And there's a lot that we can talk about, content repurposing as well, which we can get into. But in terms of what platforms you should be on, where you should be on, everything is driven and everything should be determined by who your audience is.
Right.
So it's not even that easy to generalize. For example, you might have thought just then, well, if I'm selling to other businesses or if I'm trying to work with other businesses, I should be on LinkedIn. But actually, I think it's like 50% of people who are on LinkedIn are also on TikTok. So it's kind of also a testing period. Like, all of marketing really is, this is an educated guess, and let's just see how it pans out. And for the first 9 months of my business, I really was only on Instagram and TikTok, and that was still successful for me. And then I brought in LinkedIn, and that has absolutely skyrocketed my business in a lot of ways as well, and given me access to opportunities I wouldn't have through Instagram and Instagram and TikTok. So what I would say is, if it's just you, and if you are still trying to figure out what that looks like for you and your business, what is working, start with one platform and get really good at that platform. Don't worry about necessarily which one is best. Again, you can sort of use those generalizations to help you pick potentially, but also if you are naturally someone that feels motivated and feels ready to show up and be present and be super locked in on TikTok, for example, then work on TikTok content or work on promoting your business through TikTok, and just focus on getting really good at that. And then looking into promoting yourself on other platforms, because I guess what you have to realize is your clients are everywhere. I think it's like people on average have accounts on 8 different social media platforms or something. So it's hard to say that if you're not on LinkedIn and you're also not on TikTok and you're also not on Instagram, that you're missing people. That's definitely not the case. And I think it's more just about your energy and where you feel most aligned. If that is on Instagram and you enjoy sharing about your business there, and you enjoy talking to people on there, and you find it a much more enjoyable experience, that is going to be much better for you in your marketing than trying to force yourself and spreading yourself thin over multiple different channels.
I think that's really good advice, because I know, again, I'm going to make this about my experience, but I have felt like I'm not doing enough, but equally I've got nothing left in the tank to then be on TikTok and be on all these other things. I'm like, I can't. And all that happens then is, rightly, like you've just said, you spread yourself too thinly, that then the message becomes diluted, and you tend to, it shows, it just, how you feel actually reflects naturally. And I think that is a concern for a lot of people. You keep hearing, oh, it's going to TikTok, so much more business ventures, the interaction, the engagement, it's all there. And you just feel like, oh, if I'm not doing it there, then I'm not doing it right, basically. But from what I hear you saying is, it doesn't have to be that way. It's where it lies in your comfort zone. And like the statistic you just said was, what is it? The average person has eight different accounts. Like, that's amazing. I didn't realize it sounds huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think you'd be very hard pressed to find someone who is solely on Instagram these days or solely on TikTok. You might have a preference for the platform, but to say that, you're only on one platform, I feel like that's quite hard to find someone these days.
Yeah, no, it's true. When you think about it quite quickly, like even my mum, who is not a demographic at all, she's of a certain age, I will say, because she'll kill me. But she herself is on Facebook and Instagram, and if she could be on something else, she would. She's always like, "Oh, what's that you're looking at?" So you kind of always think, okay, a certain demographic, you have a certain person profile in your mind that would have multiple accounts on social media, but actually even the most unassuming person in certain age groups, let's put it that way, do have several. So that, just kind of trying to unpack that in my mind, that actually getting to 8 accounts is not that big of a deal, actually, really, when you think about it. But to that point, doing what you feel comfortable with and doing what you feel shows the best of yourself is definitely the key to being somewhat successful. I guess another thing that with marketing and where you choose to promote yourself and what platform you choose to use, it does feel like an ever-changing scene. One thing that I guess I'd like to kind of understand is what got you into marketing. I think it's always interesting to know, who is that person behind the company that you have, but what is it? Has it always been a dream of yours? Were you always this person that was into marketing, and how did you fall into what you do right now?
Yeah, it's a very cliche answer that I fell into marketing kind of by accident.
Right.
I actually initially for a long time wanted to work in the languages industry. So I wanted to be a translator because I can speak German, and I went to uni. I did my A-levels, GCSE, uni, studying German and film. That's what my degree was, because I was both into the sort of creative side of, I suppose naturally the content creation side was always something that I was always really interested in, and it was something that I had been doing naturally by just on my own accord anyway. And so I thought the closest thing, because back then, like being an influencer, being a content creator, really only had like YouTubers back then.
It's so true.
So in my mind, I was like, I want to create content, but I don't necessarily want to become a YouTuber, so I'll just go into film. And that's how that started. But then I also just really loved the idea of being able to communicate in a different language. I also thought that knowing another language would open up more opportunities for me down the line of potentially living abroad or being able to just even be more employable. And so that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do that as a joint degree. What then ended up happening was I was on my year abroad in Germany, and I had a sudden realization that I have no work experience. Apart from the translations that I had done at university that were part of my actual like assignments and my exams, I didn't have any actual tangible work experience. And you know what they say, you need experience to get experience. So
love that line.
Classic. So I sort of freaked out a bit, and I was like, okay, I say I want to be this translator, so now let's actually go and see what it's like in the real world. And what ended up happening was, I think I'd found about 4 translator internships that were all unpaid, that were all in London, and my family's from Cardiff, so moving to London for an unpaid internship was out of the question. I'm not a Nepo baby. I did not come from money. So that was not something I was able to do. But what kept coming up in those searches was marketing internships.
Right.
Because being able to communicate, being able to have that sort of cultural awareness, having you know, the skills that come in to knowing a language, or at least, I guess, being able to communicate yourself in a strong way, is so important as a skill for marketing. And so I did a bit of research, realized that it was something that was able to combine what I loved about being creative in the film side of my degree, and then also in the communication side of my degree. And I was like, why not just give this a try? I have nothing to lose at this point. I don't have any translator experience, so I might as well get something on my CV. I ended up getting a couple internships that summer doing marketing. So like social media, blog post writing, graphic design, very like creative and communication style marketing, or at least like content style marketing, and decided, yeah, this is what I was going to do. And so I used those experiences, managed to get a job just before I graduated, and worked in marketing for a few years, and then was fired. You know, which is always fun when I tell people that, because you know, it is a blessing in disguise, but it was a very, very shit time when I was fired. But I suppose, you know, it's part of the story, and it's something that led me to starting my business and led me to almost be able, it's kind of funny because I work with clients now to help them realize the value that they can give to other people. And actually, through starting my business has helped me also realize the value that I can give to people.
Yeah.
And that has helped me just rebuild my confidence, the trust that I have in myself, and the ability to empathize and relate to the clients that I work with now. And, you know, it's all made me a much better person and a much better business owner. So I can only be grateful for those experiences. But yeah, never ever thought about marketing as a career, as even just entrepreneurship. I was very much committed to climbing the corporate ladder, and then decided to go on my own.
That's amazing. I think, you probably don't realize, but how it comes across is that you seized every opportunity, and you seen something and you made it a reality, your reality. Because on the outset, for somebody to think, oh yeah, you studied German and you had an interest in film and you got to marketing somehow. How? But you seen the relativity, and you connected the dots within that, which is a skill in itself, because a lot of people, and luckily for me, a lot of people don't know how to do that, hence why I help them with their careers. So I'm glad that not everybody can see the way you can see.
Yeah.
But it is amazing that, you know, you have that creative mind to link certain things that on the outset to the average person are not, you know, meant to sit together or meant to work in that way. So it's cool. And I think for anybody listening, you know, whether you're in a marketing role now, like you just said, you could be somewhere in the corporate field and feel like, okay, I need to get to a certain point, which I've been there as well. I need to get to a certain title. Really? Why do you? Like, why the hell are we all like, it's just something that I think is kind of, I don't know. I don't even know where it actually stems from, but whether it's your own pressure as well, or society or whatever, like this title thing and this certain point of corporate acknowledgement maybe is what we all need before we can step into another world where, yeah, through, for example, with your personal experience, it was an unexpected shift through what happened. And again, you saw something that you knew you could do, maybe not on the offset, maybe not in that moment, but however you've come out and you're doing exactly what, by all accounts, sounds like what you're made to do. And not only do you market people's businesses, but I think what's nice and I think we've probably come complete full circle to what is good in marketing is when you can relate to somebody. So we've all wanted to be at a certain point in the corporate world. I think if we're all honest, that's probably, I don't know, it's in acceptance, whatever it is, we've all kind of been there. Things happen, you know, whether you're made redundant, you're fired, you have to make life choices, and you have to walk away from something that you thought was right and walk into another world. So the things that you say are very relative, and at some point most of us have experienced some of those key things. Or like you said, you started off in languages and film, and actually they're both very creative, both need strong communication, both like a visual aid as well. Like there's so much in there that is relative to so many people that are listening to this, that one, skills can be transferable. Don't just feel like because you entered somewhere that you have to stay in that place. Like there's so many things that you can do in life, in your role, in, you know, it's just endless, isn't it? If you really put your mind to it, there's so many things that you can continue to do and reinvent yourself. And I think for me, and I think how my interpretation of how marketing is working right now is that we can do and be many different things. It's, you know, I think that's infamous saying of jack of all trades. And it was kind of always seen as like a negative, but why should it? Why can't we be good at several different things, you know?
May I actually cut in there? Because I just found out something about jack of all trades. The full phrase is jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
But oftentimes better than a master of one.
See, that bit is never known.
That bit is left off. And that is so important because it changes the whole meaning of the phrase. And you're absolutely right. I think when you were kind of very, very nicely summing up my experience there, is like the one thing that kept coming up in my mind was it's okay to pivot.
Yeah.
It's okay to
essential to keep growing.
Exactly. Just explore the different paths that life gives you. And as you said, you know, very nicely, seizing opportunities, but also, I guess, feeling those feelings that come with having to reinvent yourself, as you said as well, and understanding that you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll be fine.
That is the takeaway. And I think for anybody listening to this and kind of to bring it more, you know, not as marketing focused, but more like female entrepreneur and doing it for yourself, is when you are in the corporate world, there can be this, and I've been in this situation many a time where I've worked with leaders, and especially when it comes to promotional rounds, annual reviews, it's okay, well, we need to get you to the next position. We need to get you to the next position. And I could never have seen myself as a VP or a CEO because it's getting further away from the creative side. But it's seen in the corporate world, if you don't want to keep continuing, you're a bit of a failure. But that is so untrue because there's many lateral moves and different directions that you can go in that just aren't dictated by a title. And again, back to what we've just said, you know, having the courage to move away and trying different things it's all out there to be gained, isn't it? You know what I mean? And I think that's a big lesson. And, you know, we can sit here and both say we've both walked away from corporate through whatever realm it was and come out on the other side. Yes, it's difficult, but it's definitely worth it. I think one kind of coming to the end of it, one thing that I would like to ask is, for anybody that is and has listened to this story of, you know, your beginnings, where you've gone through, how you've gone through that and then come to where you are today, if you were to give any advice for anybody that's, you know, wanting to make a change and something that you wish you knew, what would that be?
Ooh.
Big question. Just, you know, like there's so many people that really do want to leave what they're doing, the day-to-day, the grind, the monotony, and take that leap. And it can be scary, but, you know, in hindsight, from somebody like yourself that has done that, if the, you know, if there were a glass ball when you were making that decision or looking back, what's the piece of advice or the thing that you would definitely say, watch out for this, or this can be a tricky bit, but
Yeah. The first thing I would say is, please don't hand in your resignation tomorrow if you haven't got any sort of anything lined
no
up.
knee-jerk reactions.
No
Please.
knee-jerk reactions. I suppose it's hard to say, because when I was fired, it was not something that I was expecting. And what I would have loved to have done is be at a position in my business where I felt like I could have taken it full time in my own way, and exited the company in a way that was different from how it ended up being. So if you are in a position where you can make that choice, I would say start sowing the seeds now. One thing that I wish I had not focused on so much was making things perfect and trying to have everything ready, have all of the ideas, have everything ready, set, go on day one, because that's not going to happen, because you have to get it out there to know what you need. How are you supposed to know what a client needs in the onboarding process if you've never onboarded a client? You can try and, you can do your research and you can try and include the things that will be helpful, but ultimately you don't know until you do it.
Yeah.
So if you have been thinking about maybe starting a side hustle or sowing the seeds for your business, whatever it might be, something that you could then leave to do full time, start it now. Sow the seeds now. Check your company's policies, because that was the reason I was fired. But otherwise, if everything's good to go, start sowing those seeds now, and just be okay with knowing that it's not going to be perfect, and also that you will have to learn on the job. And I think those are probably the things that I've realized. And finally, as well, you can do more than you think. So, you think, 40-hour work week is so long, how am I going to now do more on top of that? You do find the work, like the energy, you do find the time. And I guess just have that goal in mind of, I want to be able to have that time and location freedom where I can work from anywhere I want, however I want, be able to be there for my family, be able to pick up my kids, on time every day, and be present when they're home from school, for example. Have that sort of mission and why in the forefront. Know that you can do more than what you think, and try not to be perfect. Just get something out there and see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant advice, and I definitely can still take on a lot of that advice, because there is, when you first launch, you think, there's all eyes on me and I want it to be perfect. I want it to be the best version, but you don't know until you continue to try. And there was something I heard earlier this week. I'm slightly obsessed with, I don't know if you've watched it, the Netflix series with Ryan Serhant. It's brilliant. He's like this real estate mogul in New York, and he's just, how he manages people, and he's got such empathy. He's true businessman, but very unusual. That he's just this true raw person, which I, again, when you find something relative, I thought it was lovely. And he mentioned this week on one of his Instagram posts, which I found really interesting, because it's something that I've often bounced back and forward with, is always starting, and you may disagree with this, but always starting with the problem, and that's how you find your business. But he said he really doesn't believe in that. He believes in start with a purpose. You will get to the problem, maybe client by client, but you must start with a purpose, because that's what you are, and that's the right starting point. So I found it interesting, because when you normally hear about how to start your business, you must know the problem because you need to solve it and you need to go out and sell that. But when he said, start with a purpose, and when you were talking through like what you were just saying about what you wish you knew and how you would advise. You said, think about your mission, and a mission is quite often more than not your purpose as well. What is it you really want to do? So yeah, I found that interesting as well. So there's lots of things that, no matter what point of the journey you're on, you'll listen and you'll meet people that will kind of reinvent the wheel of your thought process of, actually, yeah, for me, that landed really positively. I was like, yeah, I'm always looking for the problem, but when you're dealing with people, problems are so different. And I'm like, okay, it has to come back to what my purpose is. So I found that, yeah, that was something that this week was like, I like that.
Yeah.
It was quite cool.
Have your purpose, because that will help you when the going gets tough.
Yeah.
And you'll have a strong reason for why you should keep going, and having that vision for why you started the company in the first place. But when you're then, what actually makes your business successful is solving those problems.
Yeah.
So I think it's both. It's having your purpose for why you can keep going, but being able to solve the problems and bring success for your clients is then what will facilitate
that's
the end goal and the mission. So yeah, I think it's fine to have both, because
it's a bit of a balance, isn't it? And understanding, a bit of chicken and egg, I guess. But yeah, super, super interesting. I think, like you said, when you're starting out, and life in general, none of us have it 100% sorted 100% of the time. And I think that's something we've just all got to check in with on a constant. It's a constant learning. The world changes and we have to adapt to it, and that goes for personally and professionally, that you have to keep pivoting, to your point, and keep that in mind to make yourself relevant, and also keep attracting the right clients and doing all of that as well. So I will close on that. I have absolutely loved speaking to you today. I've learned a massive amount, so much more to learn within the marketing world. And I hope everybody that's listening as well is definitely able to take away a lot from today's podcast. I'm sure that there is so much to unpack. What I'm going to do is I'll link all of your socials so that anybody that wants to learn more about your business, get in touch with you firsthand, attend any of the workshops, check out your website, all of the things that you have. I'll make sure I link all of that in my bio for this podcast. And any closing from you, anything that you want to mention, wrap up?
Gosh, thank you so much, Claire, and thank you anyone that's listening. Yeah, if you have any questions or anything that you want to dive deeper, anything that you felt maybe you needed some clarity on, please feel free to message me, email me, DM me. I'm here to answer any questions. And I think just start with one thing, one message, one approach, one platform. Try not to do too many things, because running a business is already hard. And just see what happens. You'll figure it out. I believe in you.
No, I love that. And I this year, actually, somebody asked me yesterday, what's my New Year's resolutions? And I think to that point, it was, as I spoke more and more to her, I was like, I don't have any this year. And I felt a bit guilty about it. And then as she was speaking, I was like, it's more about refining and being a bit kinder to myself and not doing as much, because that's what I was doing. So I think what you've closed on is super important, because we all need that. We all need to just know what is enough and how we can manage our own selves, and it's doable, and everybody at their own pace. I think that's a sound piece of advice. So thank you so much. Totally enjoyed it. Like I say, all details will be in the bio. And if you're enjoying these podcasts, please like and subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you.